Hello, welcome to Philosophy 130. I'm Mike, Dr. Hill, Professor Hill, whatever, but I really prefer Mike. This is a course in the Introduction to Philosophy at Henry Ford College. I'm going to go over today some things on the syllabus, some things on the Moodle page, just a brief course orientation. Before I get there, let's do a little brief orientation into philosophy. What are we doing in this class, and why would you want to take this class, and why would anybody want to ask why? Tell you a little story. There's once these two people in a garden. They thought they were the only two people alive, and maybe they were, and maybe they weren't. In fact, they really didn't ask any questions about that. They just kind of walked around and enjoyed themselves in the garden. They were so oblivious to any rules or considerations or cultures or differences that they didn't even bother to wear clothes. They just walked around naked as babies. They had another presence in the garden, a force, a being, a ghost, something that seemed to be in charge, and that seemed to be the creator of the garden. And the creator of the garden came to them very occasionally and said, "Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how's the weather these days?" The weather was always perfect. And told them that the only rule in the garden was that they could not eat the fruit of this one tree in the middle of the garden. They could eat anything else they saw all through the garden, but they could not eat the fruit of the tree. Well, that's great and all, but when there's only one rule, how are you going to misbehave except for breaking that one rule? How are you going to explore your boundaries and know what those boundaries are without breaking a rule? I mean, just think about having a child and telling a child, you can do anything you want in this playroom, but don't play with this one toy. What toy is that child going to want to play with? Of course, as the couple are walking along one day, they managed to avoid this tree for quite a while, but they walk into the tree, toward the tree, and they see the fruit, and they just wonder, we've had these fruits over here, and they're really sweet, and we've had these fruits over here, and they're really crunchy, but what is this fruit like? And of course, they grab the fruit, and they bite into it. What happens when they bite into it is that they break some kind of boundary. They break some kind of norm. They break some kind of idea. And it opens up a whole possibility of other ideas. Essentially, what happens is by stepping over a boundary, taking an action, by resisting a rule, this couple finds a whole new possibility of other rules. In fact, and that's scary. It's very, very scary. They find a whole new world that they didn't know existed. So they're hanging out in this garden, and it's still beautiful. It's still wonderful. They can still do anything they want. But now they've broken the one rule, and they're a little scared. They look at each other and they say, "Oh my God, you're naked." They recognize nakedness. They clothe themselves. And then the dude comes back, or the dudette, whatever. The presence, the being, comes back and says, "Hey, peeps, what's up?" And then he looks at them and he says, "Hey, where'd you get those clothes? There's not a gap around here anywhere." And they say, "Sorry, dude, we ate from the tree." And the being says, "What? How dare you do this?" And then something happens, something that hadn't happened before. One of the two people says, "Why are we here?" In that moment, the being, the presence, says, "All right, You're not here any longer. You broke the rule. You're out. And the two people then have to go into the world and find their way. Story is obviously a variation on the traditional story of Adam and Eve in the garden, the traditional story of creation. I think a lot of times the story is shown, used as a way to explain how there's sin in the world, or how there's this struggle between God and people, to show how we lost paradise as beings. It's a philosophical story in its very nature, in that it tries to provide an explanation for the state of our existence. I think often because it's told and retold and taught in religious situations, the story has very limited interpretation. But if we look at it as a story, there are multiple interpretations we could make from this story. Like, what if the being did not have the people's best interest in heart? What if knowledge is something we want to grab? What if it's okay to ask, why are we here? I'm not trying to argue with your religious upbringing and what you know or what you think you know about the story of the Garden of Eden. That's not what I don't want to get into that. I instead just want to talk about this as a story. The question of why is a central question to your existence as a human being. It's a question that you have asked your mother when she tells you to clean your room. It is a question you have asked your lover when she says she wants to break up with you. It is a question when you ask your next lover when he says he wants to get married. This question why is central to our being as humans. And sometimes it's not so bad to reach up to the tree and grab a fruit and try to ask why. Think about our world right now. Think about what's happening in our world and the kinds of things that we struggle with. This is kind of cool because it looks like my head's exploding leaves. Think about the things that we're struggling with in our society right now and the ways we are asking why. Some of those questions of why are positive and energized, and they expand our knowledge, and other questions of why are scary and cause conflict. But maybe we'd all be better off if we ate a little bit more fruit and asked a few more questions. There's a bugaboo right now in the world, in the conservative world, on this thing called CRT, critical race theory. And it's the idea that there's this horrible thing being taught in schools and colleges and universities, but also, it's also being taught in high schools and junior highs and elementary schools and kindergartens, and who knows, maybe even preschools. When you're learning how to build blocks, you are also learning CRT. What fascinates me about that is the fear of the people who are arguing against CRT, many of whom don't know what CRT is, the fear they have of an idea, of people asking why. Critical race theory, just a very quick definition, is itself just a theory of how we should be talking about our histories, our education, our worlds, our institutions, by paying attention to how they have dealt with issues of race in the past. That's what it is. The hullabaloo about the critical race theory right now is a scare tactic that some people are using to make you think that things that are being taught in school are bad. My belief is that we would be much better off if we reached up to our trees and grabbed every bit of fruit there and built as much knowledge and as many ideas and considered as many positions as we could. This is where the metaphor of the Garden of Eden can get a little tricky, especially if you are somebody who believes it wholeheartedly as a member of a religion. But, you know, one of the things I didn't notice about this picture when I put it up here is this eye in the middle. I just thought it was a cool tree. I didn't notice this eye. What if those who are in power often try to keep us from eating from the tree because they are afraid that we will see them watching us and controlling us? What if they want to stop us from reaching out for knowledge because knowledge is scary? Knowledge forces us to ask questions about who's in the tree and who's telling us what to do. There is nothing scary in an idea. What's scary is the way it's at times the way an idea is implemented. In order to be able to deal with that, you've got to be able to ask questions. You've got to be able to talk. You've got to be able to make arguments and let your arguments bounce against other people's arguments and see what happens. Those skills are essentially what philosophy is. Asking you to have an ability to share arguments, to listen to arguments, to think about arguments, and to engage in discussion with other people, trying to persuade them of your arguments and trying to understand their arguments. Arguments about meaning and existence and being. This is philosophy. And so in our philosophy course, we're going to be doing many, many things and many, many ideas. We're going to be exploring lots of different possibilities for meaning. We're going to go and take a look at our philosophy course right now. So let me share my screen. You get to hear my clicking, and you get to hear what many students have heard over the past year and a half, which is a teacher trying to figure out how to share materials. I don't know if you're now seeing the screen, but let's assume that you are. This is our philosophy course page. Hopefully you've figured out how to get there. Hopefully you're figuring out Moodle if you're new to it. It's really not all that hard once you figure out where to click. So this is our philosophy course page. Our course page covers a lot of material right off the bat and has some features that I want to point out today. And I also want to talk about the syllabus. So first, let me just point out where you're going to spend your most of your time. Most of your time is going to be spent in the different weeks that will pop up. This is week 1. You have to click on this little triangle to get it to pop down. Next week, week 2 will pop up, and so on till we get to week 16. And you'll have lots of different things appearing in those weeks. When you go to the week, you will find some kind of introduction here that tells you about what we're going to be doing that week, and then a week list of tasks. And then those tasks will either all be right below that or will show up through the week, depending on how I want to time things. Right now, you've got 9 tasks for this week and 1, 2, 3, 4 different things that are showing up. So we got 5 other things that are going to be coming at you through the next week. Again, this is a longer week because I'm combining the first 2 weeks together. You need to get it started right now. Go ahead and start reading. Take a look at what the description for the week is, participate in the first forum, do the first reading and the second reading, and read over what you're going to need to do for your readings journal. And then other things are going to start appearing. I'm going to put something up tomorrow, something up on Monday, and so on, until we get your entire tasks for the week. Let's talk about the other things on this page. First, we have a statement on academic integrity. And for me, academic integrity is far more than just not teaching. Academic integrity is being a participant in a course and giving your effort, your ideas, your language to that course so that you can get something out of that course. And so I'm asking you to approach this with that kind of integrity, to think about how you are participating and how you are participating in an authentic way. So please read over that statement on academic integrity. You will find a link for my office hours. If you click on that, you will go to my Zoom room, which is what I'm presenting this talk through, and we can talk. You'll find a link for the Philosophy Cafe. We haven't not yet determined when that will happen, but a Philosophy Cafe is going to be this really great thing, which is an opportunity for you and me and other classmates to come together and talk about philosophical ideas in a much less formal format, where you can bring your ideas, bring your questions, bring the theories that you want to talk about, and we can just talk about them. Or we can talk about themes in the course that are happening and questions that you have. It's a really great experience. The semesters that I've done it, where I've had participants there who are there regularly, it has been the best part of the class, but it's voluntary. So it's hard sometimes to get people to volunteer to join. We're going to talk about when to do Philosophy Cafe later this week. You'll also find our course materials, the Welcome to the Course video, the Philosophy 130 syllabus, our course schedule, and a link to the Introduction to the Writing Center. Let's go ahead and take a look at the syllabus. Now, this is the one of those things that we have to do in school. It's not always the most interesting thing when I've got to talk about the syllabus. I got to tell you what the policies of the course are, what the expectations of the course are, so that you can decide whether or not this is a course for you. So what I want you to do is listen to the talk over the syllabus here today. Think about questions that you have, think about problems that you have, and contact me with those questions or problems so that we can work those out. But also decide and make sure you understand that there's an expectation in this course that you are an active participant, that you are an active participant with integrity, and make sure that this is the course for you, because we are still in the drop add period. I don't want to lose anybody. But if you find out the policies of this course, or you find out the way it's going to work, and you decide, nah, I don't want to do this, you know that you're not going to read, or you know that you're not going to participate in the way that the course is asking you to, then it's really a good move for you to go find a course that will work for you. Again, I'm not trying to lose you, but I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into so that you can make a good educational decision. Because I do have respect for people who decide, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to drop now and go find a better thing. That means you're controlling your education, which is always a good thing. I have more respect for people who stick it out and do the work and participate in what's going on, or maybe I appreciate those people more. I will promise you that if you hear what's going on in the syllabus, you hear what's going on in this course, you decide, yes, I can do this, and you stick around, this will be a great course for you. You will learn a lot, you will grow a lot, you will develop a lot, both as somebody who may have an interest in philosophy, but also as a student, as an academic, as a citizen. This course will help you. Here's the syllabus. I have cartoons on my syllabus, so I'll let you read those on your own. Let's talk about what we're doing here today in our philosophy course. I'm not going to read everything here because that's pretty boring. I do expect you to read it or to have an idea of what's going on in the course. I will point out that this course is 100% online. It's 100% synchronous or asynchronous. That means that we are not going to be meeting together as a regular part of the course. Now, we are going to have Philosophy Cafe. You are invited to that, and I hope that you take part of it in it, but that's not a required part of the course. This is instead an asynchronous course, which means weekly you are going to have a list of goals like the ones I already showed you, and you're going to have to get through those tasks every week. It's based on your own time, based on your own effort. The more time you spend on it, the better you're going to be. But there is not a time where we are going to be required to be together in a room doing something at the same time. Okay. Your textbooks for the course. Your first textbook is the primary text. It is the Norton Introduction to Philosophy. It's a big, thick one. Got lots of philosophers in there talking about lots of interesting ideas. And this is your primary text. You also have a secondary text, the Philosophy Skills book. This is a much shorter book, but it provides you with some tools, some skills that you need for thinking in philosophical ways. This is the first time I'm using this book, but I decided that just doing these readings was not providing students with enough academic support to help them do philosophy and do it well. So we've added the skills book this semester. In order to be in this course, you need to be eligible to take English 081 and 093. The work of philosophy is going to require you to read a lot, think a lot, and produce some amount of academic work. Um, your grade is going to be based on this work. The first work, reading journals. When you're going to record your reading notes, responses to course subjects and lessons, and observations about the world around you. We're going to talk more about those reading journals as we go. But the primary idea here will be that you are using a reading journal to record every time you read, every time you watch a lecture or a video, and to think about why those things were meaningful for you and for others. I will say the readings journal is a way that I have of checking to make sure you're doing the reading, checking to make sure you're covering the course content, but also a chance for you to reflect in an academic way on what you're experiencing. You will also have 2 exams and 2 essays and projects. So basically, your primary work is just going to be doing a readings journal, 2 exams, 2 essays and projects. It doesn't sound real heavy, but the readings journal is super heavy. I mean, it's what the work of the class is. You'll also be graded on participation, where you're going to be asked to meet 80% of the weekly course tasks, meet 80% of the posting requirements, provide responses to the prompts and other posts that are on topic and add to the discussion, show that you're familiar with the material under discussion, and be respectful of others' views and ideas. As long as you do those things, you'll get full credit, even if it's only 80%, you're going to get full credit on participation. Let's look at the grade breakdown. Your notes journal, 30% of the class. If you do not do that journal, if you don't do the readings and show that you're doing the reading in the journal, you're going to miss that 30%. I mean, that drops you from an A to a C, or below, actually below a C. You will also have 20% on exams, 20% on your essay and project, and 30% on discussion board. So basically what you can see here is 60% of your overall grade is going to require your active participation in this course through the readings, through the thinking about the readings, and through the discussion of those readings with other people. The grading scale is here. The only thing to note about the grading scale is we stop from a C at the grade of 72. Below a 72 is a D, because we don't give C minuses here. You can find the course topics here. Let's talk about all the policies. The nature of asynchronous online work, we talked about this a little bit. Basically, you've got to be involved and you've got to contribute frequently. Do not just check this course on Sunday night. Everything was due every week on Monday evening. Don't just check this on Sunday night and then try to respond to everything. That doesn't allow for good discussion. It doesn't allow for you to process information, and it doesn't allow for you to really use this course in the way that it's designed, which is for you to check back frequently throughout the week, for you to contribute frequently on discussion boards, but also for you to be reading and thinking about things throughout the week. If you are just checking the course once a week and just posting everything at that time, the postings are going to be silly. You're not going to be reflective, and you're not going to get a lot out of it. So please commit to being here throughout the week. What I would suggest is, if you are checking the course less than 3 times a week, if you are jumping on and participating less than 3 times a week, you're probably not doing enough to get yourself engaged in this course. Conferences. You're encouraged to meet with me during conferences, during my office hours, and if you need to, during times when we schedule together, so that we can talk about your ideas and your writing and your academic work and any struggles that you may be having. I'm happy to meet with you. And I'll also say, often students don't take advantage of that. Especially with their full-time professors. Your part-time professors have a lot of things going on in their lives. They are not paid fully for doing lots of conferencing, but your full-time professors are here. We are required to have office hours. It's part of our job. You should use them. Come and talk to us. Representation in philosophy. So the field of philosophy, like many academic fields, has a long history of privileging white male voices, people who look like me and sound like me. It's hard to teach philosophy without privileging those voices, without teaching Kant and Plato and whoever else. Why I don't know why I'm blanking on philosophers' names. It's hard to teach philosophy without just teaching white male voices, because they have been so dominant in our ideas of who philosophers are. But of course, philosophy is not just a white male thing. It's not a white male thing. Philosophy is a human thing. And in this course, we are going to make every effort to expand our horizons, to expand our ideas, and recognize that far more people in this world have had ideas than just those old white men. This is not to say that I don't like old white men. I am an old white man, and I love some of those philosophers, and we're going to cover them, but we're going to cover them in context with other people. I do think it's important to read this part out loud. Everyone is welcome here in philosophy, here in this class, here at Henry Ford College. Everyone is welcome. Every idea is welcome to be expressed without judgment, except for those ideas that do not welcome others. If your ideas are exclusionary and they are shutting other people out, those are not as welcome. Biased philosophy exists and needs to be confronted. Racist, sexist, homophobic, classist, ageist students and professors exist, and they do need to be confronted. While I will do my best never to embarrass anyone for a misstatement or an ill-conceived idea, discourse that discriminates will be called out in this class, because every single person in this class belongs here. And I want the racist, sexist, homophobic, classist, ageist amongst us to learn how to accept and how to be accepted. I don't say this to scare anybody, but if you say some bullshit, I'll call bullshit. And I say that in a loving way, because you are a student and you need to learn how to be a student with other people. But I will not allow people to be discriminated against in this class. Okay, let's move on. Writing and reading instruments. You may be tempted to do this course on your phone. Since it's very technologically based, I highly recommend that you avoid this. Phone reading and writing does not allow you to think, pause, and consider and revise. It's usually hasty and ill-considered and shallow. This may be an ageist statement itself. Maybe it's just I'm so old and I can't conceive of how I could possibly do all my work on this phone. But let me tell you, I'm on my phone all the time. I play some really great games on my phone. I check messages, I respond. But there is a real fundamental difference in how I can engage with this phone and how I can engage with a book and a notebook. There's a real fundamental difference between how I engage with a book and a notebook and how I read on my computer screen. Think about the ways that you use your writing and reading instruments and how they are affecting your work. Assignments. All your assignments are due online on their due date. Your weekly discussion boards must be completed by the due date. You will not be able to make up missed discussion boards. Think about discussion boards and activity as classroom activity and discussion. You can't participate in such work if you missed it, even if you have an excuse, because that work happens in a space and time. It may feel like you could make up a discussion board post, but if you post past the due date, nobody's going to see it. So you can't make up that work. Readings and journals and formal writing assignments may be submitted late with permission. You must contact me and tell me the reason the work is being submitted late, and I can reopen the modules, but we need to talk about it. It doesn't mean that will always be the case. If you are frequently late and frequently showing that you're having a problem here, we might have to talk about that issue. Exams can only be made up with a written excuse. Exams may be changed if you miss the original exam date. And all your formal writing assignments, your projects must be typed and formatted. That's not your reading journal. It's really just those writing projects. Reading assignments, online lectures, and reading journals, they need to be watched and done during the week which they're assigned. We already said this, but I want you to, I've had people who have not done any reading journals for 10 weeks come to me and say, I can do this, please let me do this. And then they try to do them all in a day without reading anything. That's not the point of it. Save your work. You should always save your work. There's attendance policies here, but since this is an asynchronous course, let's talk about what that means. Your attendance in an online asynchronous course is shown through your access to the materials, your performance of the work, and the evidence that your work shows that you have actually read and studied the materials of the course. If you do not show that you have done all the work for the class and you have not attended this course, your attendance will be reflected in your participation in your readings journals grade. I will use both what you produce and the amount of time you spend on these materials to help me determine your attendance. At a minimum, you should check into and respond to others at least 3 times a week. Of course, you should also be spending time away from the course reading, reading, studying, and writing about the materials in the course. I'm sorry, this is really different for me to do this kind of syllabus talk, so I'm stumbling over the words a little bit. Basically, I don't have a policy that says you can't have more than 3 absences or 5 absences. I think those policies are stupid anyway, even in a real live course. But I do have a policy that says you've got to be here and you got to be doing the work. If you are not checking into this work frequently, you are not attending this course, and that will affect your grade. Discussion board participation. This is an important part of the course. Obviously, it's 30% of your course. You should be jumping onto those discussion boards and giving valid, interesting input. Often the discussion boards are based on philosophical problems where I'm asking you to engage with the critical thinking. They are not just busy work. And in fact, they're not even about discussion. They're about the ways that you articulate and use ideas in writing. So I expect you to be a participant on those, and I expect you to be doing really good work on those. If your discussion boards amount to you logging in, reading something and saying, I agree, or, oh, that's a good point, smiley face. If it's really shallow, just posting something because you're supposed to post something, that's not going to get it. Here's some guidelines. You must meet the requirements for 80% of the discussion boards. Your post must show that you are aware of the topics and the readings and lectures in the class. You must remain respectful of other people. You can be critical of ideas, but you must do so without being critical of classmates. And finally, your post must be original. If you use sources in your post, you must cite your sources. I found out something last semester that I hadn't been paying a lot of attention to. I saw it, but I never really processed it. I had students plagiarizing off of each other. You always have like 1 or 2 students who are going to jump on quickly and do their work and post their ideas. They've done the reading, they're posting a really good idea. What often happened last semester for some reason in that course was people would read that first 1 or 2 posts and then just steal the ideas out of there without reading anything else. They'd not read any philosophy, they'd not read any of the work. They would just steal those ideas from the original post and restate them in a different way. That can't happen. That is not original work. That is plagiarism, and you need to be careful of that. What I would recommend is that when you're going to approach a discussion board, read the prompt, follow the directions of the prompt, write your post, and then read other people's stuff. Write your post before you read other people's stuff, even if you feel lost, even if you feel confused, because the whole point of this is to practice critical thinking. And if I can't see your original critical thinking, then I can't really assess what you're doing. Grades. My approach to teaching philosophy emphasizes process over product and thereby attempts to assess the student's abilities to navigate the processes of their own thinking. I attempt to base my grades on my process. Because of that, your grade's largely going to be in flux through the end of the semester. I do not do this thing where you have this assignment, it's worth 10 points, you got 9 points, you're at a 90%. That's not the way it works. That requires math, and who wants to do that? Instead, I'm looking at the process. If you got 60%, that wouldn't happen here, but if you got lower scores on earlier stuff, but then you really started kicking it in later stuff, then you're going to get the better grade. What's more likely to happen here is you're not quite taking what I'm saying here seriously, and you blow off the first 3 reading journals, barely doing anything. You just sort of post on stuff. You haven't accessed any of the materials of the class. I catch on to that and I let you know you need to kick it into gear. You need to change what you're doing. Your processes need to be better. and you change those processes, you're going to be graded on the later processes rather than the former processes, unless you go so long doing that kind of stuff that you never change, or it changes too late. Then that will affect your grade. That's probably a little too abstract, but we'll talk more about it as we go. Don't trust the Moodle gradebook. The Moodle gradebook is a tool, and I don't use it very well. Assisted learning services. Students who identify or have been identified as special needs are encouraged to discuss those needs and their impact on their work with the instructor. I'm happy to work with you. I'm also happy to work with our Office of Assisted Learning Services. Their phone number is right here. You should call them if you have some issues that impact your work, so that you can talk about what resources might be available to you. A note on accessibility. I attempt to make my course accessible to meet all student needs, but sometimes I miss out on some notifications that inform me of difficulties, or sometimes I miss out on making documents accessible in a way for all students. If that happens for you, please know that I'm not trying to exclude you, but I didn't pay attention to something, or I made a mistake, or I just didn't know that you needed some considerations. So please contact me if you feel like a document's not accessible for you, or if we need to talk about something. Student services, there's lots of student services at the college. Check them out. HFC email policy, you must use your HFC email, which is not that hard, because all you have to do is, if you want to send me a message, just click up here onto your screen and you can send me a message right there. My email policy, I try to get back to you within 24 hours through the business week. On the weekend, who knows what's happening, so I may not get back to you until Monday. But in order for me to reply, I have to know what I'm replying to. If you send me an email that is not asking me to do anything, I might not reply to that. Video policy. We live in an odd era, and if we are online together, say in a office hours or in the philosophy cafe, you may not record other people and post that. You have to understand that you have to respect people's privacy. Plagiarism and academic dishonesty. Plagiarism sucks. The people who plagiarize suck. It is a problem in the college. We will talk more about this as we get closer to doing writing, but please know that you cannot take other people's writing, other people's ideas, other people's arguments, and reproduce them as your own without giving that other person credit. You cannot allow somebody to take this course for you or do your work for you. Instances of academic dishonesty will result in instances of failure, because while I do not want to fail anybody, I can't allow you to do this course by cheating. So please be aware of that. We'll talk more about plagiarism issues later. In A grade, Henry Ford College requires all students to actively participate in order to avoid, we don't want to give an A grades, but sometimes we have people who enroll in classes, take a seat in a class, and then never show up. And those people will receive an NA grade. In order to avoid an NA grade, you probably won't need this at all, but you must have checked into this course. You must do at least one exercise that I know that you're here and that you actually intend to do this course. Let's see. W and DR grades, if you need to withdraw from the class, please do so. If you end up disappearing throughout the semester, I may assign you a DR grade. And that's the syllabus. I've been going for a while, so I'm going to stop here in a second. I will say that there's a course schedule here. It's not very helpful, but it does lay out the kinds of things we're going to talk through the week. It's a pretty quick overview of the syllabus, of the course, of what you need to do. It's a lot of stuff coming at you, so I recommend if you got questions, come back and watch this video. Read the syllabus yourself. I got some jokes in there. Cartoons are awesome. Read it, find out whether or not this is the course for you. If it is the course for you, I'm very excited you're here. I'm very excited we're going to explore ideas together. We may even talk about critical race theory just to make things exciting. I look forward to the semester. Let me know if you have any questions. Since I'm over here, let me point out, you can go over here to the top of your screen to this chat box and open a chat and send me a message. You can also open this and send me an email message. Either one of those work. I will respond to them as I see them. If you try to send me a message and I don't respond for a couple days and it's not a weekend, send me another message. Make sure I see it. I look forward to the semester. Let me know if you have any questions. And I hope we talk about some great ideas this semester. Have a great weekend.